While football results are largely powered by performance, statistics have also proven to play a large part. With big data flooding the sport and greater scrutiny on optimizing performance and analyzing the opposition, Laduma Analytics has slid into a sought-after gap and is now using data and video analysis to show general trend in opposition analysis. And with the domestic season nearing its conclusion, many permutations are still at play. Some teams are looking to avoid the playoffs. Others want to cement a spot in the top 8. And of course, there's that ensuing race for the second spot. Now, helping us to unpack some of those permutations and trends is sports data analyst from Laduma Analytics, Moyo. Lee, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to join us here on the AM report. I suppose let's start there in terms of the season in numbers. The big question that everyone wants to know is, can Kaizer Chiefs cement their spot in the top 8?
Good morning, Andy. Always a pleasure being on Newzroom. Yes, that is the big question. Can Kaizer Chiefs make the top 8? So historically, it's been the fact that 40 points is usually sufficient to get you into the top 8. So you want 40 points, and Kaizer Chiefs are currently on 38 points. We have a graph that shows a trend line for the points that they've been accumulating throughout the season. And the rate they've been moving at is about 5th or 6th place for the season. So we think for this season, if they get another 3 points, they should be safe. But then to be 100% safe, perhaps 39 points will do it for them to get into top 8.
And if you're looking at that as compared to previous seasons, is this in line with what we've seen previously, with that being the number that you need to secure a top 8 spot?
Indeed. So the magic number historically, since the PSL became a 30-game season, has been 40 points. That's the average for getting into top 8. And then if we cut that down and say maybe the last 12 seasons, then we're looking at 39 points being what you need to get into top 8. And this season, like I said, 38 or 39 should be enough, because there's a lot of teams that are on 34 and 35 points, and that may play each other in the coming weeks.
Let's look at the bottom of the standings then. Now confirmed that Cape Town Spurs have been relegated. And if you're looking at their performance and what it is that ultimately led to their undoing, would this be in line with what we've seen in previous seasons? Again, the magic number is usually 30 to avoid relegation, and we've seen they were quite far from it.
Indeed, the magic number is 30 to avoid relegation, and they've been far from it for a while. What our trend line shows, and what the results showed as well, was that Cape Town Spurs started in a very difficult position. They lost the first 11 games, but they didn't win any of their first 11 games, which was a PSL record at the time. At the halfway point, they only had 4 points, also another PSL record. And these are records which normally you want to avoid. So that's been the trend since day one. They've been in the relegation zone and never really came out. So now they've been relegated, but beyond relegation, there's some records also that they don't want to say it or to break. Only 3 teams in PSL history have ever finished a season with less than 20 points, and only 2 have lost more than 20 games in a season. And at the moment, Cape Town Spurs could join that club, which would be, as I said, another unwanted record.
And what does this say about the gap between the lower divisions and perhaps top-flight football in South Africa? Because we're seeing something similar in the EPL, where we've now confirmed Sheffield United has been relegated, Nottingham Forest and Luton Town look like they're set on their way as well, which is bringing questions around, is there a big gap then to be bridged if you're looking at the performance of Cape Town Spurs versus what is expected in the top flight?
I believe there is a gap, and teams have to be strategic when they qualify for the top level in terms of recruitment, recruiting the right players with experience, but at the same time getting young players that are exciting and are part of their projects as well. As you said, we've seen it in England where the lower teams come up and in the same season they get demoted again. If that happens, I think it's only the second or third time it has happened that all 3 promoted teams in England come in and then go out in the same season. So there is a big gap that teams need to be strategic about. And like you said earlier, using data as well as part of their tools can be some of the systems that they use in order to get out and make it in the top flight.
Let's go to the top of the standings then. The big talking point has been Mamelodi Sundowns. Can that runaway train be stopped? They're looking to go for an invincible season, but let's take a look at their numbers and why it is that they've been so far above the rest.
And the Sundowns have been in incredible form. Throughout the season, they've been at what we call a 75-point pace for most of the season, meaning if hold all things equal, Sundowns would get to 75 points if they don't drop too many points once they win the title. So it usually goes that once you win the title, you can relax and then start dropping points and drawing games. But then if they continue with their momentum that they have at the moment, they could end up on 75 points. And that would be equaling the PSL record in a 34-game season. So teams in the past played 34 games, and the record was 75 points. And for a 30-game era, the record is 71. So Sundowns are just below that and could equal that in the coming 2 or 3 games. They have other records as well in sight. They could have the most wins in the 30-game era. That record stands at 21. They could also have the most wins in any PSL era. That record currently stands at 23. And the maximum points that Sundowns can get is 24 for the season. And you also alluded to the fact that they're aiming for invincibility. That would be a first ever in top flight football, PSL era and before, for a team to go through a season and finish without a loss.
Yeah, it does look like it's just Sundowns competing against themselves then. In terms of the records that could still tumble as the season draws to a close, what are some of the interesting stats that you've observed and trends that one would be looking at in the remaining matches?
So in the remaining matches, the one record that has stood the test of time is that of conceding the fewest goals. It was Kaizer Chiefs in 2004 that conceded just 9 goals throughout the 30-game season. And then, they conceded 11 goals throughout the 30-game season, and Sundowns are currently on 9. So if Sundowns don't concede another 2 goals, they could become the best defense that has ever been seen in the league as well. And as well, finishing the season without defeat, we said that would be a very remarkable achievement as well.
Well, just before I let you go, one final one, that race for the second spot, Stellies and Orlando Pirates still engaged in battle. Who do you think will take that one?
Oh, it's a tight battle, that one. I'm going to back Stellenbosch because we are based in Cape Town.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lee. And of course, we'll be taking a look at those numbers as the season does draw to an end. Of course, that's Lee Moyo, who is a sports data analyst, just giving us a review of some of the interesting stats that we've seen throughout the season.